Good morning, everyone. The Delaware County Commission meetings regarding special session for budget is scheduled to start today, and we are now in session for that purpose. And I don't know if there's any comments from my fellow commissioners before we begin.
Nope.
So, we're good to go. We're excited.
All right, well,
Don, I'll turn it over to you.
thank you. Dawn Houston, Deputy Administrator, and
Karen First, Fiscal Manager.
I will start out by saying that Karen and Sarah and Marissa have all worked quite well and very diligently on the budget presentation for today, and did a great job putting the budget books together, and I think they'll be easily followed with the new tabs that we have in place. But we wanted to start out by just basically giving a high-level overview of the budget process generally, and talk about a few things that you'll be seeing throughout the process over the next few weeks, and talk about timeline and next steps with the general fund budget. So Sarah, if you can start our presentation. So some of the goals that we had established with the budget memos that we sent out back in September were basically similar to those that we sent in 2020. We were recommending that non-personnel expenses, including services and charges and materials and supplies, be held at a 3% increase, and also requested that if there were any capital projects, that they also be held at a 3% increase unless there was additional justification that was provided, and we requested that through the budget process. As you know, employee retention and recruitment has been a big topic of conversation. That was also part of the budget memos that we had sent and some of the responses that we had gotten back from the other elected officials. And so a 4% increase for non-union employees, and then union employees that follow the county compensation plan is what is recommended for 2022. We had recommended that there be little to no staffing increases. I do know that there have been some, it seems, with the budget inputted into OpenGov, it seems that there may be some additional staffing that departments are requesting, or possibly even looking at reclassifications for certain.
Getting a summary of.
Yes, and we are working on getting that summary from the departments. We will probably be asking those questions for the departments that are coming into a budget meeting, and then those that are not, we'll be reaching out to them to get that those details. And we'll be talking a little bit about the capital expenses later on in the presentation. There's more to come with that, but for the 417 fund, we had recommended that those items be limited, basically because of the cost of Bixby that we will be incurring next year. So the next slide is a graph of the general fund expenditures, and the requests in this item came in just over 10% of what was budgeted for 2021. And you'll notice that the color-coded statements in the notes section correspond at the bottom on the far right with the totals for the 2022 proposed budget. Once again, with the salary increases at 4% and certain wage adjustments that have happened along with the additional positions, we believe is why we're seeing the 10% increase here. You know, we had the hiring freeze in 2020. I think departments are starting to try to recover from the pandemic and kind of holding the line with staffing and programming. So that is probably part of the reason why we are seeing the increase here. With the next item, the 11% increase combines health insurance along with like OPERS and Medicare and those types of things that we pay toward salaries. You want to take the next couple?
All right. For item 3, we are showing a reduction in the grants and aids line. As you recall, we provided additional assistance through the small business grants and the community enhancement grants in early 2021. And then item 4 is the capital transfers, in which we will go into further detail on this in a later slide, but there's also a breakdown of the capital request in your budget books.
And then, as we have talked previously, the data center is requesting $1 million toward increasing the county's cybersecurity program, which, you know, is definitely something that is front and center, I think, with not only Delaware County. They do a great job with keeping things safe with our cyber, but you know, it's definitely been in the forefront with other counties, other Corsa counties, and the nation overall. So we want to make sure that our system is top-notch and 100% secure.
And for item 6, it's just a little note that had we not flatlined the budget in 2021, and that if the budget had steadily increased by 3.5% in 21 and 22, that we would be at approximately $135.7 million, and the proposed budget for 2022 in the general fund is $135.8 million.
And then the next slide shows the general fund revenue. You'll see again that this is color coded to match the figures on the far right. Number 1, you'll see that is inclusive of the sales and property tax that the county receives. The blue, which is that blue or purple? Where's blue? There it is, in the actual, for the road and bridge reimbursement fees. And the number 3, the anticipated growth and conveyance fees, again with the public defender reimbursements from the state and the casino revenues, there in number 4. And the clerk of courts transfer for capital expenses, and the courthouse deputy is then recognized in number 5. Anything else you want to say with that?
No, nothing to add.
So some of the things that kind of trend and maybe noteworthy topics that we wanted to mention. With health insurance costs, as you know, for the second year in a row, we had a significant increase in our health insurance. We were able to keep the employee contribution at 12%. However, we instituted the spousal surcharge to help offset the additional increase. And we're hoping that in 2022 that we'll see our claims experience to begin to recover and hopefully have a better 2023 for our health insurance costs. Workers' compensation is actually doing very well. Our claims and experience are trending downward, which is good. And so we had recommended for 2022 a slight reduction in the charges for workers' comp by 0.1%. The operating costs, we're seeing departments wanting to expand programming and training into 2022, probably because things are beginning to recover and back to normal operations, and I think some departments are hoping to expand some of their operating costs because of that. So I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot about that from the departments that we'll be talking with, and what you'll see in your budget books for those departments that provided you with narratives to review. The forecasting data is showing strong from the projections, which is a good thing. And with the 420 Capital Fund, with the Bixby campus, we had kind of looked at this. Karen did a lot of analysis with this, and if we were to provide an additional $2 million toward the Bixby campus construction, we would probably be able to pay half of the construction costs in cash, which would probably be something that may be recommended, depending on the forecasting and how all of that goes, and then where we fall with budget overall. And again, in the 417 Capital Fund, there were several projects that were not able to be completed this year, so there's going to be a carryover with that, which we'll talk about here shortly, in order for the departments, mainly facilities, to be able to complete some of the projects that they had wanted to work on this year, but just had not gotten completed. So the budget meetings have been set for the larger departments as well as for the offices who have requested increases of 30% or more. We'll be talking today with the sheriff and facilities, and we also have next week regional sewer and building safety. Their projections definitely, and in the past, even with the pandemic, things have been strong for both building safety and regional sewer. And we'll hear more from them, as I said, next week. And once again, the data center increase is mainly for the cybersecurity project, and we'll be talking with Treasurer Ranke next week about his requests for increases. And Karen's going to review the capital spending requests that we have.
For the
Any questions before we move to the capital?
Yeah, good question.
No, thank you.
I guess maybe just a general comment. At this point, it's the first pass, so numbers are still preliminary, but if you step back, we've got about $135 million of spending and about $121 million of revenue. A $14 million gap, which just obviously can't be accomplished, it can't be done. So a couple thoughts. I think we talked yesterday that I'd like to see the full-year forecast of spending, because traditionally what we do is we budget conservatively on spending, and then come in under budget, but the increases are based upon that year's budget. So 10% increase is really significantly higher than that on the baseline real spending for 2021. And so I think we need to evaluate that so we can understand just the spending rates for 2021 versus the budget request for 2022, rather than budget 22 versus budget 21. And so anyway, that's something we need to do by office and department. Secondly, I think again we can't budget a $14 million deficit. So I think what we need to do is revisit both sides. Obviously, the expenses, we'll go through the process and address that. But the revenue also, again, we tend to traditionally conservatively budget revenue as well. And I think our budget for revenue right now is actually below, in 22, below what we will get in 21. Again, on that full-year forecast, not versus the 21 budget. So I think we need to revisit that as well. I think our sales tax is actually below where we are for this year, for next year, which just isn't realistic. So we need to revisit both sides and close that $14 million gap so we can get get a balanced budget. So, those are just kind of a couple general comments on the general fund. So that's it.
Okay. All right, for the capital.
I'll add that, yes, we do need to get it balanced, and we've had some conversations, as we've discussed before, and I think Commissioner Benton is right on track with that. And I did want to make a statement. We're doing 4% on salary increase this year. It was the commissioner's feeling that we wanted to get back the percent that took back last year. So I hope people don't look at this as 4% is going to be the standard going forward. It was really a good faith effort on the part of the county to get back the percentage that we weren't able to give last year because of the epidemic. So I just felt that statement needed to be made for the record, so that we're all aware of that. And obviously, we don't know what we're going to do next year, but it shouldn't be an assumption because we did it for this year, therefore that becomes the template. And just a comment, it's not really related directly to the budget, but under workman's comp, there was an article I read a day or two ago that talked about work from home. I don't know if anyone else read it or not. And workman comp claims that theoretically can occur with work from home, and determining whether they're work-related or a person goes to the kitchen and takes lunch. And I don't know if anyone else read that, but have we had any issues in that area that you're aware of?
We have not. That's been a topic of conversation, obviously. But yes, that is something that we're definitely keeping an eye on.
Any other comments on the budget? Moving to capital.
Okay. For the 401 fund, we are estimating a balance of $1.35 million with revenues of approximately $828,022. And this covers the major projects for facilities. And John Melvin will be coming in later today to discuss this in more detail. For the 417 fund, we are estimating a balance of approximately $2.15 million since several projects were not able to be completed this year. And if all our projects that were requested in 22 are approved, we would need approximately $1.75 million cash transfer. And some of the main projects include the fiber extension for EMS 7, 2 ambulances, 12 vehicles for the sheriff's office, a jail management system, and a vehicle for veteran services. And for the 420 fund, we are estimating a balance of $7 million with a transfer of $12.95 million. And this includes the Bixby campus, the Willis building remodel, and the 5th district build out in the courthouse. And for all these funds, there's a detailed breakout in the front of your budget books.
Any questions about that?
I'm sorry?
Any questions about that?
Anyone have a question?
I guess just another comment. We have received ARPA funds. We have another round coming next spring. It'll be significant, and some of that money could be used for some of these projects.
Right.
And again, it's still early. I don't know how this is going to play out during the budget cycle, but that's something else we need to study. You know, is just how can we use those ARPA funds to address some of these capital projects and, you know, be in compliance with the kind of the early rules.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I
Can't
agree.
wait the direction from Eric on that as he evaluates it.
We're actually meeting, we have a committee that meets monthly at this point to kind of review the requests and where we are with getting guidance from the Treasury. And we're kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for the guidance, which is projected to maybe be released by Christmas.
Christmas 21?
Yes. Yes.
Hopefully.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are many projects that we have earmarked for the possibility in this to utilize the ARPA funds.
But right now in the 22 budget, we don't have any revenues
No.
included, and the ARPA balances we've received are steady through the year. We're not spending
Correct,
it.
yes, and that is in a special revenue fund, so it wouldn't affect directly the general fund.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and there's, I know we talked about this yesterday, there's a jail capital fund at the state level that might be available to pay for some jail improvements, because I think the state set aside $150 million for jail construction and capital improvements, and there may be some funding available for that. So we'll have to talk to the sheriff about, you know, whether that
Yeah,
we could do that or not.
right, yes. And that is something that we have on our list to look into, to see if there's something that we might be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a long time in coming after being in the meetings about that.
The
But
details of what.
yeah, I think, yeah, they're going to, yeah.
I'm not
yeah,
surprised.
that-
Same
yeah.
thing with the infrastructure bill that was just passed in the US Congress. I mean, there may be some funding available with that, for some of
Yeah.
these projects, there may not, But that one definitely won't be available by the end of the budget cycle.
Yes.
I'm not optimistic about the infrastructure bill. Most of that is, you don't want to hear my comment about that. So I'll just keep it myself. I don't think that there'll be a lot there that we'll be able to assist on budget, because I think there are certain things that this administration wants to accomplish that doesn't really fit what we're talking about.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong, but. I'm not
Well,
optimistic.
yeah, it's a very low figure compared to the overall amount that is
Well, yeah,
actually
I think infrastructure, what we would define as infrastructure,
roads,
being very
bridges.
generous, 25%, and probably close to 20.
Oh, yeah, it's low compared to what you'd think it would be with the name of the bill. So, yeah. Yeah.
As far as these individual categories of capital spending, I think we've got the right items focused on and targeted to be funded. The 417 fund is largely maintaining our fleet of ambulances and sheriff's vehicles, which we have to replace every year or
Right.
we get in real trouble. And then the Bixby campus, Bixby campus being the big one. So again, I think we're targeting the right items.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and, with the delays in receiving the vehicles after they've been ordered, is still a concern. So
Sure.
we'll keep an eye on that as well. Anything else with that? If not, we'll just go on to the next slide. Just this outlines the departments that we have requested to come in for a budget meeting. Some of these obviously are because there are larger departments, ones that I think are important that we hear from, especially Job and Family Services, since they have provided so many needed services for our citizens over the last year and a half. And then also with departments that have larger requests that we need to drill down on a little bit further. But if there's other departments we need to bring in, we can certainly do that as we work through the budget timeline. We'll be working with all of the offices to determine what budget changes are going to be needed before our target of December 20th to approve the budget, but you'll see here what our projected timeline is. After the budget meetings, we'll be meeting with the departments individually to kind of work through their requests and try to get to a number that you all are comfortable with. Any questions?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, very good presentation. And the materials were really good, very, I liked the way it was all laid out, and I was able to take these separate things that, when I had another meeting that I was in yesterday and just go over them. That was really helpful, rather than the big book that's sitting there on a chair and trying to go through that. So, thanks.
Yeah, we learn every year new tips and tricks, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'd just like
Thank
to
you.
reinforce what Commissioner Lewis stated. I think that it's much cleaner than we've had in past years as we have evolved. Aaron, you did a lot of work on this. I want to speak to that and say fantastic. Obviously, you had help from other people,
Oh,
but
yes, definitely.
you
Lots of
really,
help.
you
It
were
really
the
takes
hub.
a team. Yeah.
And other people were the spokes, but, and obviously throughout the county, the other departments who contributed will make this process easier for us to evaluate and do the best thing we can for the taxpayers in this county. But Karen, thank you, and Marissa, and Don, and whoever else I should be thanking.
Sarah.
Sarah, I'm sorry. but I felt it needed to be stated.
Yeah, it is much easier to read and follow rather than those books that were hundreds of pages of data. This is much easier to understand and focus in on the things that need to be focused in on. So thank you.
When we go through the minutia, that really is hard to get down to the real numbers because of all the pages we had to go through. And,
Yes, right.
books are about that big. My memory was about that big. But, so anyway, thank you very much, all of you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Anything else?
if I could thank the auditor's office, George Kites and his staff, they're always willing to answer questions and provide assistance whenever we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's
It's very
great,
helpful. I
yes.
know Cy helped us
Yes.
considerably on this as well, and auditor's office in general, so thanks for correcting me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is there
Thank you.
nothing else? I guess we will recess until 10:30.
10:30. Mhm.
So with that, if there's no objection, we are in recess until 10:30.